this show, my God, I got through it in like 2 days, which I feel like
Man.
which is not good for my own. It's sneakily sort of emotional. I feel like the emotions live up here like the whole time. So I think after I finished it, I didn't realize how like when you're hit with a lot of adrenaline, your body's just like ugh.
Mm.
Felt like uh I sort of physically felt my the tension release. So that's a long roundabout way for me to say I love your show so much.
Wow. Well, yeah, I mean that makes me feel phenomenal. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. And as part of the cast, I think we felt the exact same way coming off the show.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
So okay, George, I had a very I want to say visceral reaction to him. There's something about you have a line. I think it's in the first scene that you have with Allie's character where you say you got to start focusing on the positive. It's after she comes home. Um, and I feel like when I heard you say that, I feel like I like raised my eyebrow a little bit at you, and I was like, "Who is this man? What is going on with him?" And
Here we go again. What's up with
here we
this
go.
guy?
I was like, "Who is this man? Who's this man?" Maybe I'm defensive of Ali Wong because I love her so much. Um, but I was wondering if you could tell me, is it easy for George to keep calm?
Huh. Yes, in the sense of I think he's built this really thick veneer throughout his marriage, but also throughout his adult life, and so in some way, like he's just kind of bought into his creation and really kind of doesn't have any other reference outside of that, which is what you see throughout the duration of the show when he's trying to create boundaries for the first time, really just try to break whatever this external thing is for himself.
Yeah, it really. I kept thinking about that a lot. Like after I think it's episode 2 or 3 when she says something to you. It's when you guys are at that art show with all the chairs and she pulls you aside. And I love how that scene is shot because you can see the whole show going on behind you, and you
Mm.
the foreground. And Amy calls George vanilla in public. For some reason, the public of it makes it even worse. And it was sort of like I sort of loved how George physically he didn't know what to do. He was just sort of like, oh my God. And then he like sort of storm out and you like kick a chair like a little kid. And just
Yeah.
that I don't I just made me think of like how much this man like just keeps everything so
Uh,
just like bottled up or inside. Um
mm.
yeah. Um I gotta figure out where I want to ask you next, just because I feel like the show is so rich, the writing is so
Yeah.
like actually let me just ask you about that. Just because the writing is so rich and I can feel like on the surface is one thing, but the subtext, I feel like there was a lot to chew on. Um,
Mm.
I wanted to know from you like what it was sort of like to just read it. I know that's a very general question, but I mean like there is a lot of subtext there, and I was wondering if you could tell me like diving into that, where do you start?
Yeah, I mean it's funny because I think a lot of people especially people that know me are always kind of curious like, oh, hey, like how did you think about George and you also playing an artist as well. I'm a fine artist as well in real life, so
Mm-hmm.
there is that kind of similarity. But to be fair, that was a bit secondary to kind of the vulnerability that I read immediately off the screen. What I read was an insecure artist. And really, my first impression of that was like, look no further, like this guy all day. And that's really kind of I had a real like soft spot for George in the sense of like I feel like me personally, like I feel like I grew up a bit too fast,
Mm-hmm.
and when that happens, you're trying to fulfill whatever this definition you have of masculinity growing up, as a kid, as an adolescent. And I think this that causes you to kind of cover up and deflect and to build this exterior and to fulfill whatever that notion is. And I think for myself, like I lost a little bit of my innocence in my childhood because of that, because I was always trying to like prove to whatever this notion was. And playing George was really like healing, and it was really, in many ways, it was releasing as much as George kicking that chair in the same vein of like, I just got to be a child again. When I see
Mm,
George, I think of like this very like there are parts of him obviously that are toxic, but also there's this like golden retriever child to him, childlike innocence and purity for like the things that he loves, which is
yeah.
his and his family. And to really kind of just love those things without any sort of like self-judgment, it just felt very freeing.
Writing that down. Golden retriever nature. That's what I'm writing down. I don't know. There's something, just you mentioning as a kid, like the scene between you and Steven when when Danny, even though he's hiding who he is, tells George or compliments George's work as an artist. The way that your face almost lights up. I immediately felt really bad for him. Just because I like how in the way that that scene is staged, like George's artwork is on one side and his father's artwork is on another side. It's sort of like they're staring at each other almost.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I do you think George has always just put a lot of thought about living in his father's shadow?
I'm sorry. Has he put a lot of thought into living in his head shadow?
Like, yeah, and the thought of like, yeah, being overshadowed by his father or the legacy of his father.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of that pressure isn't necessarily from himself. I think it's from his mom, obviously, and
Mhm.
it's a lot of yeah, it's everything from the outside, kind of like suppressing his identity, and because of that, he's just not able to really kind of live in his own shoes, and I think that's kind of those are like the cracks that you begin to see throughout the show.
Yeah. Okay. I did want to ask, like, touch on the, presumed masculinity. There is, I'm not even sure I can formulate a question about this. It just was like a feeling that I had a lot of
Mm.
times when I was watching it. Maybe there's something about in early in the season when we see Jor, I think it might be episode one, when you're all at your house and Fumi is there and you give her like a snack. It looks like a push up. And there's something about the way that she um like eats it or the way that it is supposed to be eaten and automatically conjures up an image of a child. Um
Mm.
and I don't know, something about like George being, with his daughter all the time, or the fact that, Amy is the breadwinner. I just kept thinking about, this notion of like what we're supposed to imagine a man is supposed to be, if that makes sense. Like I just kept thinking about that a lot. That's not really a question. I just wanted to tell you that I thought about that a lot. And when
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and to add on to that as well, George actually you see him reaching for the scissors and
Mhm.
cutting the goat
Yeah,
or his
yeah.
mom. So it's like this weird kind of enmeshment that he has with his mom, this unhealthy dependency he has towards her as well.
Yeah.
Um, and just goes to like show like all of the other kind of blurred lines he has when it comes to his own boundaries.
Mhm. Hmm. Okay. Sort of going along with fatherhood and taking care of other people. Their daughter June uses art to, I think they said, to help with her anxiety.
Mm.
Um, how do you think George, especially as a man who, like we were just talking about, lives in the shadow of his father, how do you think maybe he wants to nurture that? It's because it is, you know, a passion that he has. Obviously, he's an artist, but this is something that a child is doing. How do you think he wants to nurture that in a way that is um, healthy and I don't want to say different than the relationship he had with his father, but yeah, just kept thinking about that too, maybe about how he would guide his daughter while she's doing something like expressing herself.
I guess like in some weird way, I feel like as human beings, I think creativity, the instinct to be creative, I think is innate in all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But at a certain age, you're told to grow up, whether it's society or whether
Mm-hmm.
it's your parents. At a certain point, you're told to put down the crayon
Mm-hmm.
and to figure something out. And for me personally, I feel like my mom just never told me to put down that crayon.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, like I'm just still like that same child.
Yeah.
And I feel like George is very similar to that, where because of his background, his legacy, his father, in many ways, no one's ever told him to grow up. No one's ever told him to not be creative, to get a serious career, or to think of something else outside of what's been shown before you. And so I think the creative pursuit, I think, is just it's probably all he knows. And um, I think that's probably being a parent and being able to show that sort of creative path is probably the only thing that he is secure about that he can do for his daughter.
Hmm. I should just wondered just right now in this moment of even like uh you know caring for his child is I don't want to say like a creative pursuit, but I mean like there's a million different ways that you can parent. So maybe that is something that George used as a sort of a very not an outlet. I can't word this properly, but I don't know. Maybe just parenting in a way is sort of an outlet for him too. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's an outlet, and I think it's again, it's like it's one of the only things that he knows that he's good at. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, he's kind of bumbling, he's insecure about everything else around him. And but he knows, and because of that kind of instability in his professional life and his marriage, I think he has all of the strength and resources and energy to put into being a good father.
Hmm. Okay. Ah, okay. You make me want to go back and watch the whole show again. This is um George does harp on Amy a lot for her focus on money, or at least for her vocalization of money.
Mm.
Obviously, she's under a lot of pressure because she's trying to sell her company. So I imagine that's where a lot of it stems from. Do you think that George secretly, I don't want to say likes money as much as Amy does? Is that something that maybe he doesn't like to talk about because maybe it's gauche to him, or uh, maybe his family is a little bit more used to having a little bit more money than other people. I just wondered if maybe George doesn't want to talk about it, but he secretly just likes having money.
Mm. Um, yeah, I mean, I think all of those things are correct. Yes, I mean, the money isn't as shiny to him because it's just always been around.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think the other nuance too is that to have the discussion of money just kind of reaffirms the power dynamic of his marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so I think that is what he's uncomfortable with getting to. And
Mm-hmm.
that, which is one of many things that I think George has kind of built this relationship by dancing around a lot of these very core important subjects that need to be dealt with any marriage. And he's just kind of created this kind of whimsical life to kind of not deal with present form.
Yeah. Okay. I have to talk about George and Mia, which first of all, I remember the first time I watched the show, and I can't remember what episode number it is, but it basically confirms that George was when George is alone in the bathroom and he's looking at the picture of Mia. I yelled so loudly.
Mm.
Saw that scene. I was like, I knew it, just really loud. And I got mad at your character. I had just a very vocal, strong reaction to it. I was wondering if do you think George's emotional affair, I don't say had plans to go further, but in your mind, how far were George's thoughts about that?
I It's a good question. I don't know if George was planning to go any further because I think that comes at the risk of obviously affecting June and his family. But I don't think he saw any improvement coming to his own family, his direct family. And so I think while that stays in this kind of stagnant form, I think he also sees this kind of side relationship as something that needs to kind of run in parallel.
Mm,
um, for him to just feel balanced and to feel whole as a human being, to have some sort of validation and appreciation from this thing that he's not getting at home. I don't think that was ever going to cross the line in terms of him ever leaving Amy, but I think he just doesn't really have a clue or has any sort of foresight into things changing or
mm,
becoming different. And so until that becomes some sort of possibility, I think he's just kind of stuck to having this side relationship with them.
mm. You know that it's interesting that you say like speaking of stagnation and this his marriage and family being a constant in his life. And I was just wondering for the last couple of days, I was like, I wonder what George's like divorced life would look like. Feel like I sort of um obviously no because I didn't inhabit the character. I sort of came to a blank at it just because I was like, I don't know. I think that's actually kind of indicative of the unexpected nature of the material. Like I wouldn't know what his single life would be like if his personal life went into free fall like that.
He just becomes like this chain smoking maniac who art becomes really dark. He grows out his hair, doesn't take showers.
Has a huge beard. I'm gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think that's all the time I have with you, Joseph. Thank you for your time. There's something about I can't pinpoint it. That scene between you and Allie where you're sitting on the bed with your hands like this, and you guys are I feel like George is so desperate to see something positive come out of the process of something.
Mm.
Some of those lines where, you guys are supposed to be honest with each other and you say, like, I embrace the sadness. I sometimes wonder what our lives would have been like if we never met. And I was watching that episode with my husband, and I
Mm.
remember him saying he had it was like a pause and the scene kept going on the TV. And I heard him go, oh my God. Like, I don't know. It was like this long, drawn out response to it.
Did that bleed out into another discussion afterwards?
Kind of, yeah, because it was sort of like I think the conversation we had was along the same lines of like putting thought into saying honest things to one another about like how you choose to say things to people. Like they're trying very careful to be honest, but I think George's naked honesty there, maybe not putting that statement through a filter,
Yeah.
definitely didn't pick his words wiser or wisely. Um, yeah, we talked about it for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the best compliment I've gotten, somebody came to me at a coffee shop and just like beelined it for me and said, "Hey, you triggered me. You reminded me of my ex.
Oh my god.
Can I get a photo?" And it was just it was really like the greatest compliment. I mean, however you think about him, I feel like George is very polarizing, and that like
Yeah.
there's this one kind of side to where I think people see him as very sweet, and others see him through the lens of being very manipulative. And I
Mhm.
think both are true. And so and it's not just even for George. I think it's for every character. It's so well written, and that like there's no way for anybody to walk away from the show not feeling something.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Whether you're pissed at these characters, you love them, or it's like, I wish everything you said in the show is something that I would want to say. I'm not sure if that's healthy if somebody would say that, but um yeah, I don't know that this is a very I've loved having discussions with other people about this show.
Mm.
That's how I can tell that it's very, thoughtfully made, infused with a lot of intelligence. Because I mean, I saw it a couple of months ago and I'm still thinking about it, and I keep going back to little snippets of it. So I don't know. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much again for your time. Thank you for a nice, thoughtful conversation. I'm really rooting for you guys this year.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So thank you for your time, and I guess just have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Joey. And thank you so much for your kind words on the show.
Oh
Really
yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. All right. Take
Thank
care.
your husband as well.
Oh, I will. He'll be very happy. All right. Bye.
Cheers.